Hello, welcome to Momversations. I'm Regan Barnes, founder of Momivate, and happy to have each of you as listeners joining us today, as well as Amber Price. Amber, should we call you Dr. Price?
You
Since
can call me Amber.
you have your PhD in marriage and family relations, which is fantastic that you're willing to bring your expertise, but also your just personal situations. The little bio that I'm looking at tells us that you personally have some experiences that you can share with us as we go through this. Um, and and it won't just be the academic part of things, although I think that's also really valuable. It's nice to hear how things relate to our real lives. So you have four children,
Yes, four boys.
4 boys, and what age group do they go in?
The oldest is 22 and the youngest is 14.
Okay, all right. So you've been through several stages of motherhood at this point. Are any of them married?
No, nobody married yet.
Not yet. Okay, but that'll probably be in the next decade or less.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And I read that you like to drink hot chocolate.
I do. I like to drink hot chocolate any day, doesn't matter what time of year.
That's fun. On your back deck,
On my back deck if it's summer,
if
cold
that's
in the winter.
even that's fun. Okay. Um, well, I do want to help the listeners know about our Raise Up acronym. This is something that Momivate uses to kind of structure what motherhood entails. I think sometimes motherhood just feels like this big blob of just trying to get things done and get some sleep in between. And so, when if we were to go to the mall, for instance, and just question the random person, what do moms do? I think we'd get a lot of just really vague answers of like, she gives me a ride where I need to go, or she tells me to do my chores, or some. And so what we did as we discovered this kind of a lack of a clear job description is we decided to look at various aspects of motherhood that are true across centuries, that these are things that moms have always done, and it's true even if moms aren't aware that they're doing these things. And they are in Raise Up, which we'll focus on with you, is about relationships. And um, and just there's so many various relationships that moms are involved in, um, that then kind of have a uh, let's see, like a sphere of influence type of effect on their kids. And uh, and so we're teaching our kids day in and day out by these relationships we have with the children themselves, but also with the father of the children, or with the other mothers, and maybe so I mean, like other mothers that we interact with. Our kids see how we interact with them. Um, there's also a relationship with God that we try to help our children develop by example, largely. There's a relationship with other adults in our children's lives, like their coaches or their piano teacher, or if they go to daycare, there's relationships there. So things like that that we just need to become conscientious of and realize there are ways to improve our relationships. I think that one way your message will be a little bit unique is your relationship is about kind of yourself. And
Right.
as a mom, being able to include yourself in that realm of relationships, and realizing that you are setting examples with how you treat yourself. So let's just kind of dig in and see what your message is today. which, by the way, Amber will be a speaker at our upcoming convention. And so she'll have even more time to dig in and share these concepts and ways that she's um, worked through these issues and invites you as moms to also treat yourself right.
Mhm. Yep.
So, over the years of being a mom, how have you found balance between your own needs and those of your children, and the fact that as a mom, you're supposed to be meeting everybody's needs, you know?
Right. It's like the question that we all have as moms, probably, right? Like you hear a lot in the media or from other people these days about take care of yourself, but when you're a mom, sometimes you're like, in what time am I going to take care of myself? Like I'm
If I'm
constantly
caring for myself,
busy.
who's
Yeah.
caring for the kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can feel so stretched thin and exhausted and almost like saying take care of yourself just becomes another thing on the to-do list that can feel like super overwhelming instead of empowering like we want it to. And I feel like, I mean, you asked how have I found that balance? And first of all, I feel like the real answer is balance is a myth in our minds. Like balance doesn't really exist. There's never going to be a day where we're like, I have figured this out. It's all just going to work out perfectly.
Because then we're in Zen or what,
Yeah. But
right?
there is no zen when you have teenagers or toddlers or
Yeah,
any day is going to throw you for a loop. So I think thinking that we can have balance is maybe a lofty dream, but knowing that like each day I can work on the things that matter to me and prioritizing the things that matter to me, without expecting it to look perfect, without expecting it to not be messy, is maybe like a great starting place, right? Because then it changes our expectations around what we're experiencing, and then we feel a little bit less stressed and frazzled if our expectations aren't amiss.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I would say, I look back on my years early on in mothering and, when I had the little kids that are highly demanding and I took on so much, like I think so many of us do. And so many of the things were just little things like, oh, I'm going to plan this birthday party and I'm going to make a fancy cake and I'm going to have these cute party favors or I'm going to have the house clean or, all these little things. And you think, but I like doing this. I like making this cute cake. I like doing all these little things. Well, of course I should do it. But it's like too much. It's too much for any one person to do. And I feel like I did a lot of that. And I've had to learn through the years to kind of pull back on that and know my limits and to know that even though I love doing all of these little craft things or these little sweet things that might make the party or it's not just at parties, but in anything better. Um, I have to know that if I do that, I'm going to run myself into the ground to the point where now I'm exhausted. Now I have a headache. Now I'm stressed. And instead of enjoying the party with the kids, I'm snapping at the kids or like, stop, you're driving me crazy. I need to get this done or that kind of thing. So I feel like I've had to learn to know my limits and to know that I can't choose everything.
Even though you like it, it
Yeah,
wasn't necessarily that you felt stressed out by the making of the cake.
right,
You were thinking this is a great creative outlet. I'm getting to, but at some point it still crossed a boundary of
right.
some kind to where it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't enjoyable anymore.
Yeah,
So yeah, so that's and I think what's helpful for a mom to hear is that you might not find out what that boundary is until after the fact. And so also be a little bit self forgiving at
yeah, for sure. Always. Yeah,
that point and then try to apply it for the future because life is like one continuous cycle, right? Like you learned that at the birthday party last year and guess what, there's going to be another birthday party next year, and so
right.
go ahead and apply what you learned. And if you swing the pendulum the other direction a little too far, and the kid is like, Mom, there wasn't even a cake, you know?
I don't think any of us are in danger of that though. Like I feel like anybody who's listening is probably so all in that we're not in danger of swinging too far the other way.
Yes.
I feel like though I do this with the holidays. Like the holidays can just run you ragged. And I've learned to pull back and be like, no, I've got to protect my time. I've got to protect some of that. But then it can get so easy to get sucked in again year after year, like, oh, but that's so fun. Like, we love that tradition. I don't want to cut that one out, but then there's just like too many. And so I feel like you have to like keep checking yourself. Like, it's not like you make this choice once and it's just done. You have to keep checking yourself and saying, okay, how are we doing today? How am I doing this week? Do I have the capacity for something else or do I need to pull back a little?
Oh, I think that's a critical skill. Well, that's beautiful. The idea of self-checking in, like looking at and maybe not trying to guess too far in advance
Right.
where you'll be at that stage, and then as the timing approaches, like in this case, we're talking specifically about holidays, and that does tend to be a really condensed time
Hmm.
frame and saturated, but maybe I don't need to be deciding right now in September which things I'm going to participate in or not
Right.
in 3 months. I can kind of just allow it to be a day by day thing. I love that.
Yeah. I do think too, though, knowing yourself and knowing what things energize you versus drain you can be helpful too, because it's not going to be the same for me that it is for you. Like there's going to be things at the holidays or just in day-to-day life that are like, oh, this is really, I end the day feeling like that was a really great day
Yeah.
because I did
Yeah.
this, it's something I love versus that just sucked the energy right out of me.
Yeah.
So
I,
knowing yourself and knowing what those things are can really be helpful too.
I love that. So looking for patterns from the past and when you've felt that feeling of satisfaction and contentment
Hmm.
versus the feeling of and maybe looking for the subconscious messages of, oh, I hope I never have to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah. And just knowing that it's okay if yours is different than somebody else's. I think
Yeah,
so often we're inclined to be like, well, she's doing it. I should be able to do this too, or something. And like it doesn't need to be that way. We can play to our own strengths.
I like that. Yeah, and I think that recognizes that we each are individuals, and by giving ourselves that space and saying, but I'm me and somebody else is them, right?
Hmm.
We can then kind of adopt that attitude for each of our children too. And as we are encouraging or discouraging them one direction or the other, um, from participating in certain activities or whatever, we can kind of help them adopt that same attitude of individuality
Yeah.
um, and and they can benefit then from seeing that mom doesn't expect them to be the same as all the other kids.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
All right. So, over these years of motherhood, do you feel like you've managed to maintain your individuality and passions? Motherhood can just be so all consuming and kind of engulf us is in terms of what our identity is. And I wonder if there's things that you've been able to merge in instead of them getting erased altogether. They might have had to get adjusted. But what ways have your passions and just individual character traits and stuff stayed alive and not
Yeah.
suffocated out by motherhood?
I feel like I found myself years ago, this 7 or 8 years ago, I kind of found myself feeling like I was being erased a little bit. Like I was starting to not remember who I was. Like, what is it that makes me me? What are the things I love doing? I don't have time for those. It's kind of that stretched thin that we already talked about. And with that comes kind of resentment, disconnect from people. I found myself feeling less connected to my kids, just more snippy with them or, date nights with my husband were feeling kind of dull, just like I don't like we don't know what to talk about with each other. Oh, here we are, we're out on date night and all we can think of to talk about is the kids. I know that's like a common experience and I kind of just felt like I needed to kind of re-find myself. And this came at a perfect time too because it was as all of my kids were in school full time. So it was like, okay, now who am I and what am I gonna do? But and I knew something needed to change. Like I knew I needed to kind of reclaim who I was. And really the motivator was wanting to strengthen my relationships with my husband and kids and friends and things. So that's actually about the time that I ended up going back to school, which was not something I had planned. Just started to feel right, started to feel that nudge towards that. Just thought I'd go get my master's degree. Um, Found this program, the Marriage and Family and Human Development Program, and went back to school. Now, I still had four kids at home.
Yeah.
Like, it's not easy to go back to school when you have four kids at home. But I
Yeah.
was so surprised how I had never felt better, probably in my whole life. It felt so good because all of a sudden I was doing something that I loved. It was stretching me so much. But it just felt so right. Like I was excited about my days. And I felt like it made me very intentional in my parenting, in my interactions with my kids, because I needed to be. My time was stretched a little more thin. So when
Yeah.
I was with them, I was making sure that it was good quality time. And
Yeah.
then I also felt like it was valuable to them to see mom doing something to grow herself. It was a good experience for them to see me doing that and also to have to step up a little bit. They were old enough to be helping more with dinner or, chores around the house or things like that. And they saw my husband also stepping up. And, he would come home from work early some days so that he could be the one to do dinner or things like that. So all around, it just became this great experience where I learned that the more I claimed who I was, the stronger my relationships with these people who mattered the most to me got.
I love that.
And then that's what I ended up studying in my graduate school. So I ended up going, I liked the master's so much, I ended up staying for a PhD and
Yeah.
ended up studying these exact things, just the way that we relate to ourselves and how that impacts our relationships with other people. And just, it's not a cliche. We hear, you have to love yourself in order to love others, but this is very real. Like you have to actually be able to feel like you have a sense of self and things that you're excited about. And then that really does brighten your relationships with other people.
That's that's an interesting, yeah, concept, and I do think it does try to get um, distributed in various ways across media. I my daughter the other day asked me who one of my favorite actresses was, and I said Julia Roberts, and it was funny to me because she had never heard of Julia Roberts. So even though I felt like she was one of the most famous, but apparently our teenagers are on to whole different people and don't even know. But I do remember one of her movies was called The Runaway Bride, and it really had this idea in it was she was having such a hard time. I don't remember how many men it was that she had left at the altar, 6 or 7 or something. But finally she figured out that it was because she didn't feel like she knew herself, that with each of those previous relationships she was just kind of um, mm, like, how when you pour liquid into a container the liquid takes the shape of the container,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's kind of what she felt like for herself, that she was just that liquid and she wasn't actually forming and molding herself and shaping herself.
Right.
So she was giving herself time finally to what I remember is the scrambled eggs. Do I really like scrambled eggs, or did I just order those because that's what the guy I was with was ordering?
Yeah. That
So
can be so real in motherhood when you just eat whatever your kids are eating or you sacrifice little tiny things but to the point where you're like I don't remember what I would have chosen if I was choosing for myself.
right.
It's like a small path, small steps down a path that gets you there.
Yeah, yeah. And in some ways, you're telling yourself how virtuous that is. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to finish up the leftover chicken nuggets so that they don't go to waste and whatever. But you didn't really want to eat the chicken nuggets.
Well, and we get told by others that it's virtuous to kind of lose yourself. But it's actually really, really damaging, not only to us, which we maybe know, but to our relationships. I think that part we don't always realize that it's actually not as helpful for our relationships as we think it is to do what you were saying, to like mold ourselves into something else, then the person doesn't have anyone. If I'm molding myself into the shape that I think my husband wants me to be, he's not really connecting with me anymore. He's connecting with some pseudo version of me, and that's not actually a good connection.
Part of it. Do you have examples or anything maybe that you can share of what that looked like in your past as you figured this out and how you were able to work that through.
Yeah, I mean, some of what I just shared where I was like, well, I do remember one time I was sitting with my husband and I was just like, I don't know what I would possibly get. Like, I'm feeling completely overrun by all of the things I need to do. I just feel yucky and in a bad mood. But I don't know which thing I'm going to say no to, right? Like, when am
Mhm.
I going to turn my back on my kids? I'm going to turn my back on, church service or my husband, my marriage or list all of the things and they all matter. In fact, I was having a conversation with a friend a week or two ago, and she actually said, "Can you guys help me?" We were sitting with a group of women. Can you guys help me figure out what I can take off of my plate? Because
Yeah,
I'm like, this isn't working, but it all feels important. And
right.
we've all been there. And some of the things that I think that I've learned for myself that need to be taken off the plate are sometimes those expectations, like we've already kind of talked about. Like, I think I've got to do all of these things and do them well.
Mhm.
And sometimes I need to just do it good enough, like it doesn't have to be that great birthday cake or I don't know, just all of those things. We have in our minds this ideal that a good mom would, and then fill in the blank.
Mm.
And we may not consciously be thinking, oh, I've got to check X, Y, and Z boxes. But we just kind of have this running dialogue in our minds of like, well, this is what a good mom does. And I feel guilty if I'm not doing it this way. And so I'm going to keep trying to do those things, never realizing that it's running us into the ground and actually probably making us not as good of a mom as we would otherwise be.
Yeah. Yeah. I really admire a woman that I met. I was just a teenager when it happened, but she had three little kids. I think the oldest was just 7. And unfortunately, she had a stroke, um, and got locked in. It's like pretty much your body functions just fine, but you're not able to speak.
Oh,
And so it's not the same as being like brain dead or something because the doctors are able to tell that you're really in there. You're just not able to express yourself. But she eventually regained the use of an arm to where she could type on a computer, and so she would type things out so they knew what was going on in her brain, that things that she hadn't been able to express otherwise. And one of the things that she typed was, I think I'm a better mom now that I'm locked in. And
mm,
that was such a curious thing to me to because she obviously wasn't able to do the birthday cake or all of those other expectations, you know.
yeah.
But she was able to have a kid sit on her lap, and she was able to be a really good listener. Because in my case, if I think I'm being a good listener, I unfortunately I ruin it by talking too much back. um, so so in her case though, she just really was able to recognize how that limitation actually helped her, so that because she wasn't even tempted to go get overwhelmed with all of the other things that,
Mhm.
and that gave me a lot to think about when I read blog of hers.
Yeah, that just kind of made me think of this is in a different field, but I've just been hearing a lot of experts talk about in the like fitness and health industry, like sometimes we think go, 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 like do the really hard cardio, lift every day, you know, eat less calories and things. And actually, your body needs rest days in between. You're actually going to get stronger and fitter if you take those rest periods instead of just doing all day, every day. And I feel like the same can apply to motherhood.
Oh, I like that. That's a good kind of a metaphor
Hmm.
there. Very cool. Well, I'm curious what you would say has been your biggest challenge as a mom, and what how did you manage that? What did you do? What steps did you take to try to overcome when that challenge came?
Yeah. I feel like, well, first of all, saying the biggest challenge as a mom feels a little like putting it out there to the universe to send me more.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
No, I would say I think as I'm going through this phase of parenting teens and young adult kids, you hear a lot that the younger years are physically exhausting and the older years are emotionally exhausting. And I'm in that place where I'm like, oh, they were right. It's a new thing to parent these kids who are older and making big life choices and things. And I feel like it can be really challenging as they get to make their own choices and I don't get a say in them like I could with my 3-year-old or. And
Yep.
so I think letting them navigate their own path has been a challenge. But something that I've had to learn to just know that this is part of their learning experience is to travel their own path. Like I can't actually solve their problems at this point. I can't actually make the choices for them, but they will learn and grow in the same way that I'm still continuing to learn and grow as I navigate my own path. So it feels like a real challenge, but I also just have to pull back and say, it's okay. This is how it's supposed to be. And I guess I feel like it's been helpful to have worked on developing myself and my own individuality, like we've kind of talked about, because it gives me a little bit of freedom. Like my self-worth doesn't have to be tied into every choice that they make. And I can have things that I'm excited about when I get up each day that's not just the things that they're doing. I'm still very, very involved in the things that they're doing, and I absolutely love that. But I also have things for myself. And so that gives me a little bit of distance and strengthens my sense of self to be able to manage then when things don't look exactly like I hoped they would sometimes and things like that. So I would say that's the biggest challenge, and it's one that I feel like I'm right in the middle of right now.
Yeah. And the challenge itself can be the learning to step back and appreciate them for wherever they are on that spectrum of our expectations.
Yeah.
um, and then just celebrating them as individuals, just like we are trying to learn to celebrate ourselves
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
individuals. That's great. Well, I really enjoyed having you on the podcast today, Amber, and I hope that our listeners will come to the convention and get to meet you in person and hear you again, perhaps in a little more structured manner with whatever the presentation is that you're preparing. Is it along these same lines? The
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I think
awesome.
the title we have is Everyone Has a Piece of Me But Me. So what
Okay.
am I going to do about it kind of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
right along these same lines.
Yeah. Awesome. And then hopefully they'll go away with a little bit of um, well, some really good solid ideas of how to get a piece of themselves back.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And thank you for sharing a piece of yourself with us today.
Happy to. Thank you for having me.